Welcome back to ChatChit. You've got us in a great mood this week because the Swans have got their first much-needed win in quite a long time. But that is not the main storyline out of this week. We might have seen the best home and away match for multiple years.
Well, I think I said to you when the fourth quarter just finished, that this is one of the best home and away game I'd seen in the last couple of years. But yeah, Geelong and Collingwood delivered an absolute blockbuster at the MCG with Cat scraping home just by 3 points in front of 82,000 fans. In his record-breaking 245th, I mean, the scriptwriters could not have done this any better. Jack Crisp had the chance to win it after the siren, but his shot drifted right. I don't know if you've seen I think it's his wife's TikTok or his TikTok where he recreates it, which was quite funny.
The caption was, if you don't laugh, if you don't cry, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Which was very good. He's clearly got a great attitude. My favourite thing out of that game was the reaction of the Collingwood players after the miss. Some people might find it cheesy, but I love it. The whole mantra of Craig McRae that when they lose, the players are not allowed to fall to the ground. They're not allowed to sit down or lie down. They stand tall after a loss, and not a single one of them went down to their knees after the loss. They all just went and congratulated Jack Crisp on his achievement and on his effort. So that's a scary sight to see Collingwood with that good a mentality. And what a game it was.
100%. And this game also confirmed that every single team needs and wants a player like Patrick Dangerfield. I mean, what he did in the second half, especially in the last quarter, when the commentators love it when he picks up the ball and he just puts his head down and runs through the guy in front of him just to break contact, especially when no one was clean in the final quarter, when there was pressure and everything. He almost took the game by the scruff of the neck and almost won Geelong the game in the final quarter. Yeah,
I might be ranting about how unbelievable his performance was in our next segment. Which maybe we can get to right now. The top 5 players of the round. I'll start us off with my number 5, which is a bit of defender appreciation. Max Michelani.
Ooh.
What a player. I've absolutely loved him. He reminds me a lot of one of my other favourite players, Miles Bergman, as an intercepting defender who's mid-sized to undersized and just plays so much taller than he is and just reads the ball out of the air incredibly well. Just someone who's a natural talent, a really intelligent footballer, and he's going to do wonders in the future in this Adelaide team. Had some forward time this week as well, kicked a couple of behinds and got a goal assist and got 12 marks, including 2 contested and one of those inside 50 playing as a forward. So he's being thrown around by Adelaide, similar to how James Sicily is for Hawthorn, because he's just a player that you want wherever you need a good player. So I think he performed amazingly.
I like it. I almost had Josh Worrell actually in my top 5, so credit to the Adelaide defence. My number 5, Josh Dunkley. Now, he didn't take home the Ashcroft medal. Will Ashcroft actually won that. I didn't think he deserved it. But to put it simply, Josh Dunkley took Raul for a walk in that game. Didn't allow Raul to touch the ball. Raul was playing full forward at one point. He was completely tagged out of it. It's a thing that teams will probably look at, that if you can tag Raul, then the whole Gold Coast clearance game almost goes away. And also what Dunkley was able to do when he got his hands on the ball and just the pressure he put on the whole game and personified the derby.
I think the Dunkley performance was all right. I would have appreciated it more if Matt Raul wasn't in my Supercoach team. It was very upsetting. My number 4 player of the round was Jack McRae. Now, in a game that lacked class, lacked entertainment, there was a lot of hate that came to this game. It's probably the worst game of the season to watch between St Kilda and Freo.
Problem was the Friday night it had as well.
Jack McRae stood head and shoulders above the rest. He got the most score involvements in the match. He led the game in disposals by 10 and got more than double as many contested possessions than any other player on the field.
Have that, Kane Corns.
Yeah, that's just the numbers. But yeah, 14 clearances. Any narrative that Jack McRae is some stat padding loose ball midfielder is complete and utter rubbish, and he's potentially back in All-Australian form. That's how good he's been for parts of this season.
Throw in 8 tackles and 10 score involvements as well. He was my number 4 as well.
Oh, absolutely. My number 3 was a big ruckman, Tim English. I'm going to assume Aiden has Max Gawn. I'm going to leave him out because there were a lot of incredible performances, so I'm just going to discount teams that played against West Coast, Richmond or North. Pretty safe rule when you're trying to
So they'll understand why merit isn't in either of our lists.
Yeah, but Tim English, What a win by the Bulldogs, which we're going to get into in more depth later. But Tim English had one of the very dominant ruckman performances around the ground. Wasn't necessarily dominant around the hit-out. In fact, Jordan Sweet beat him in that department. But he kicked 3 goals, 17 score involvements, which is a season high for any player in 2025, and got 27 disposals, including 3 goal assists to go with his 3 goals. And this is against a Port team that has been flying. What a performance from Tim English, who was in All-Australian contention a couple of years ago, and hopefully we see him return to that form.
I like it. Now, number 3, I do have Max Gawn. I know it was against West Coast and Flynn didn't put up much of a fight, but I just couldn't ignore a career best from Max Gawn. He's got, 7 or 8 All-Australians. He delivered a career best performance with 35 disposals, 22 contested possessions, 9 clearances, and a goal, and was pivotal in the Demons win.
Again, a decent performance, but I would have appreciated it more if I had him in Supercoach. Supercoach makes it tough to appreciate some of these performances, man. But my number 2 player of the round, and it feels like an injustice not having him at number 1, was Pat Dangerfield. I think he just has a level of power that is not matched by any other player in the league. It's sort of like something that prime Nat Fyfe had. And so you remember watching those two go at it in 2017 to 2020 when they were in their primes. And we're just seeing Pat Dangerfield have an extended run of fitness, and now he's just playing almost at his absolute best. It's a sight to see. One of the best 2 or 3 players that I've seen in my lifetime, and he just could not be stopped. He was an absolute bulldozer.
I like it. I had Tim English at number 2, and I also had Dangerfield at number 1.
Yeah. Anything to say about the performance?
No, we talked about Dangerfield a little bit earlier. It's scary that he's doing it week to week, and I have a feeling that Geelong are going to start managing him just to make sure he's there come September, doesn't pick up any injuries. He'll probably sit out and be managed for a few games, especially with the wins they picked up early in the season. Tim English, it's good to see Ruckman really stepping up. Jerry had a bit of a fall off. He's back. Gawn is back, and English is back as well.
Yep. My number 1 player, who I'm very surprised you didn't have, but I know there were a lot of crazy performances this week, was Ed Richards.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that just...
Yeah, it
was tough.
It was a virtuoso performance. Like, the level of skill, just barely ever making a mistake. Couldn't really identify one while I was watching him. And he was just completely dominant over a Port midfield, which has been taking care of their opposition recently. Ed Richards, in a stacked Bulldogs midfield, has been leading CBAs almost every single match. That's how highly Bevo and the Bulldogs coaching staff think of him. He's got more CBAs than Libba, Fraser, more than Bontempelli since he's come back, and you can see why they view him that way, because he is an absolutely classy footballer.
I believe Champion Data have him as the top ranked midfielder this year.
Yep.
As well.
And he's leading the competition in score involvements.
Yeah, so alongside Bontempelli, who's now pushing a little bit more forward, they've got a scary midfield to back him up. We're going to move on to the 2 rule changes that we'd make in the AFL. I'll kick us off. So one that's been talked about a lot, I'm just going to bring it up, is the send-off rule. So I think that any incident where the umpire places a player on report is reviewed, and for serious incidents such as striking the head, a player can be sent off. I think that it's a bit of an injustice when a player can concuss another player if it's not accidental, and eventually they'll pick up a 3-week ban afterwards and they can continue playing out the game, and the other team has to sit there and make their sub, and it disadvantages them. So I just feel that probably needs to be a send-off rule for the ones that are, let's say, extremely obvious.
Yep.
That the player shouldn't be allowed to disadvantage the other team for this particular game.
Like the Lewis Melican one from on the weekend. As much as we love the Swans, just a complete co-hanger. Pretty much punching a bloke in the face. Quite recklessly. Should probably, if that player gets subbed off as they did, and even if they don't, should probably be taken off. Yeah, my first rule change, and something that I'm quite passionate about, is more leniency on the holding the man for completing a tackle. So when a successful tackle is made and then they hold on to it, often because they can't see if they're behind the player or heads at a certain angle, they can't see if the player that they're tackling has lost the ball. So they're told, stick your tackles, and they stick the tackle for an extra second and they just get pinged for holding the man. I really dislike it, because what it's ended up doing is you watch a game 6-7 years ago and watch a game today, the tackles are just so much less committed, because they know if they commit to that tackle and hold it, if the ball falls out, then they're just going to get pinged for holding the man. So they got to just like tackle quickly and then let go. I dislike it a lot because it's a game of contact. It's a combat sport. That's what we love about it. And I think some rules like this are making it too hard to tackle properly.
I like it. My second rule, and I doubt they'll ever bring it in, but we're just going to go out and say it, is one thing I'm trying to remove is if the ball skims the post, or they can't tell if it skims the post and they have to go and review it. Let's just take that all away. If the ball hits the post and comes back in, we fucking play it off. All right. If the ball hits the post and goes in the goal, we'll give it a go.
Rugby style.
Exactly. If the ball hits the outside post and goes out on the full, it's out on the full. Let's just play it on if the ball hits the post. We don't have to worry about checking if the ball nicked the post or anything. If it hits the post and the ball goes in, there we go. Thanks for coming. We'll pay it a goal.
I love it. My second rule is something that the coaches and Ross Lyon has spoken out about in his presser after last week's match, and it's getting rid of the sub. It's something that the coaches believe in because it puts a negative spotlight that players don't want on players that might already be, going through a difficult time internally. Not difficult in terms of anything too deep, but just, might be getting dropped, or they want to be in the 22 and they're not quite there, and it puts this spotlight on them that you're the sub. I don't think it's necessary at all. 4 substitutes is plenty. There's a rare case where a team gets 3 injuries and then they only have 1 left on the bench for a quarter. That's a very rare case, and that's just something I reckon that team has to deal with in that case. So I reckon we scrap the sub.
Oh, I get it. Just an add-on to that rule, I think it should be illegal for someone to debut as the sub.
Oh,
because we see it
completely.
We see it a lot of times where you put a few good performances in the VFL and you get your chance as the sub. I mean, no one should have to debut as the sub.
Yeah, even if it's not technically illegal, but just taboo. Coaches just shouldn't do it.
Yeah. It should be unsportsmanlike.
Yeah, completely.
We'll move on to our next segment in hits and misses. I'll go straight into my hit, and it's the Sydney Swans. So I think this was a big day for Cox in the coach's box. He assigned Francis and especially Hamling to get under the skin of the GWS defenders. I know it was a derby, but there was a little bit more in it at the back there. You could see Buckley especially getting really frustrated with Francis and really frustrated with Hamling after anything happened. Drop mark, and Hamling kicked this goal, went straight over the Buckley. Sam Taylor was getting frustrated. Connor Iden was getting frustrated. And, I mean, I think Cox used the Swans' key forward weakness and turned it into almost a strength. So
yep.
You know that if we looked at that Swans key forwards in that game, they're probably the worst in the entire league. But he managed to be like, you know what, screw it, we're going to use these guys and just annoy one of the GWS strengths in the game, and we're going to allow the rest of our players to almost score goals. So if you look at the amount of players that scored goals in that game for the Swans, you'll see a lot of people had 1 goal.
Yep.
There wasn't a guy who took the game by storm and kicked 3 or 4 goals. It was just they almost spread it around because they took the defenders out of the game.
God, Aaron Francis, man. Aiden and I talk about there are certain players that we get a really bad first impression of. Justin McInerney was one. If you go through the scrapbooks and find his debut performance, there's some pretty hilarious stats there. But Aaron Francis is another one that has had a shocking start to his career, just hasn't really been there at AFL level, has done solidly in the VFL, and now he's finding his feet at the AFL. We love to see it.
Yeah, just on top of that, Chad had a day out. He desperately needed it, whether it was the contract thing weighing over his head, and that's all done now. McCartan kept Hogan to his 3rd lowest rated game since the start of last season. And Hamlin kicked his first goal in AFL Footy after debuting over 10 years ago.
Absolutely. My hit for this week was another team, and that's the Western Bulldogs. Now, they have to be talked about here. They have just taken care of Port Adelaide by 90 points. I think we've been speaking about it this season, and the Bulldogs have earned this reputation as a mid-table side, but they're not playing that way at the moment, and they're fighting to get rid of that reputation. Holy moly, we look at Port's last 3 performances, 3 really dominant wins against good teams, and then the Bulldogs' last 3 performances now, beating St Kilda by 71, taking care of GWS in a GWS home game by 32, and now taking care of Port Adelaide by 90 points. This was a complete midfield domination, it was a forward line domination, and it was a defensive domination, just completely across the ground. We have the most stacked midfield in the comp in the Bulldogs in terms of players fighting for spots. We could list all the names, but you know them all. And yeah, the Bulldogs just look set all over the ground. Like they've just got talent and ball winners everywhere. And yeah, I think they can well and truly fight for a top 4 spot. At the moment, I reckon they've had a very tough run to start the year, and yet they're sitting tied with 4th place on points. So I think the Bulldogs could definitely climb into the top 4 at various points this year.
Scary to think that Jamara and Darcy are both out of this team. I'll go into my miss, and every single week one of us could make the miss North, but I didn't do it this week. But I've just got a stat. So North have won 9 from their last 80 games, which is the worst stretch since Fitzroy from 1967. So just gonna put that out there and move on to my miss. My miss was Fremantle, so it was their 7th lowest point scored in a game since 1999. And if you had to pick out Freo's strongest asset to their game, what would it be?
Their defense.
Midfield. So yeah, on their midfield, they had their worst clearance differential in their entire history, being minus 28. They had 0 answers to St Kilda's approach to the game. I thought the second half might change because it was still close. St Kilda weren't killing them at half time, and maybe they get a spray from the coach or something, but came out, performed the same game, didn't really try anything new. I think that they almost need to start taking more risk in their game. So risk conceding more to score more rather than just switching the ball side to side really slowly and then eventually finding their way down the line.
Yep.
Use some of their big key forwards, find the corridor. But the way they're playing now, they're almost happy to score 70 points and win.
Yep.
But when it doesn't go right, they're not able to move the ball at all. Stuff like this happens.
Yep. I think the stat that's most indicative of what's led to this, well, there's the clearance stats there, but on top of that, Champion Data came out this week saying that this Fremantle side this year is the slowest team from receiving the ball to getting rid of the ball of any team ever, which is, or since Champion Data has been recording data, which is multiple decades, and that is it's a horrible thing to hear because we know that faster teams generally play better. You can get away with certain strategies where you play a little bit slower than average, but generally it's not a good thing. They have got pieces in their side like Shea Bolton, Brayshaw, Sarong. They've got movers like Jordan Clark in the back, Hayden Young when he's fit, Murphy Reed, all these exciting guys. And I think it's worth mentioning these names because they're being utilised awfully by Justin Longmuir. To be quite frank, you cannot be playing a slow brand of football when you've got those players in your side. They have got the list to be a top 4 side. I strongly believe that. I think they have the list to be competing with any team in the competition for the premiership, and they are currently nowhere near a top 8 team in the football that they're playing with the footy. So they're going to have to change the way they play if they want to be competing at all.
And you think Longmuir would be under serious pressure at the moment if he can't turn the season around? It's my miss.
My miss is not focused on a team here. It's the entire MRO system and structure as it is right now. Maybe not the structure, but the decisions around concussions. I understand a crackdown on head-high injuries. I don't agree with the way they're cracking down on it. Intent has to be a significant factor in punishment, in the punitive measures that come out of a head-high injury. So we look at specifically Paul Curtis and Alex Tauru, who were given 3+ match bans since we last released a podcast, and it's just absolutely shocking. They both made natural tackles that are made, I'm going to say 20+ times a match, those exact types of tackles or tackles more severe than that. And due to freak circumstances, concussions were caused in both cases. And so they are given 3-week sentences. I think it's disgraceful. Paul Curtis is competing for an All-Australian blazer. If it was picked today, or if it was picked before that suspension, he would be the first small forward picked along with Jack Higgins in that All-Australian team. And now he's pretty much going to have no chance because it's really competitive for those spots. And they like to give him to midfielders. Just a personal case of how this system has ruined a guy's season for a good tackle. I don't think that was a bad tackle at all. I don't even think it should have been a free kick. I don't even think it was in the back. He rolled the tackle and went into his side. So I really think that has to be looked over, or else I think this has to be a turning point. These decisions were that bad.
Well, I think something I can throw out too is when we were watching the Swans of the SCG on the weekend and the Melican incident happened, I think I turned to you turned to me, and one of us said, if he's out with concussion, it'll be 3. If not, it's going to be 1.
Yep. Yeah.
It didn't go out with concussion in the end, but he wasn't able to resume the game because of blurred vision. So probably the reason why he got 3. But if he was able to come on and resume the game in the exact same action, chances are he'd probably only 0 or 1 weeks.
Yeah, when that was, as much as I love Lewis Melican, it was just a rush of blood to the head. That was a reckless act that caused severe head-high contact, so you can understand 2 to 3 weeks. Whereas Paul Curtis, to think that they got the same sentence for those 2 things is just silly.
But it's just the judging on outcome. Like, exactly. We know it's going to happen, that if a player doesn't return to the pitch, chances are you're going to miss weeks.
Yeah, completely.
I don't like it, but we'll move straight into the next segment in the footy pyramid. We have 2 outs this week. Ben King is out. Had his worst game of the year. Jack Payne completely took him out of the game, played in front rather than playing from behind, and Ben King didn't really have an answer to it. And Sinclair is out of the pyramid. Hasn't been as impactful as he was for St Kilda when they started the season, which means in our 5th tier, Max Gawn's going to come back.
Yep.
Has had 2 monstrous games.
5th tier robbed as well, by the way.
In the last 2
Jesus.
weeks.
Is he the best ruckman ever? Tell us in the comments.
I'm just going to hold off because it was against West Coast. If this massive performance, I don't exactly know who Melbourne have coming up, but I'm assuming he's going to do a good job there. Wiedering is going to hold his spot in the 5th tier. George Hewitt is going to hold his spot. Brayshaw is going to move down 2 tiers. Was completely taken out along with the rest of the Freo midfield, and Sam Taylor is going to move down a tier as well. I thought Joel Hamling and Francis did quite a good job on him and the rest of his defenders. Moving up into the 4th tier, Lachie Neale's going to hold his spot.
Yep.
Tom Liberatore is going to move down.
Okay.
Had one of his more quiet games, but there's just too much competition at the top now. We have a new entrant, Ed Richards.
What a player.
Going to come in straight into the 4th tier. And Isaac Rankin is going to move up a tier into the 4th tier. And that means we have Liberatore, Ed Richards, and Bott all in the pyramid, which says a lot about that Bulldogs midfield. Moving into the 3rd tier, Patrick Cripps is going to move up a tier. Was one of the shining lights to come out for Carlton in that game. Zach Botters is going to move down a tier.
Just pure competition?
Pure competition. Unless he didn't have a bad game. The whole Port Adelaide team had a very below par game.
Yeah.
But yeah, competition. And Zach Merritt's going to move up a tier into the 3rd tier. Moving into the 2nd tier, Marcus Bontempelli is going to hold his spot, and Isaac Heaney is going to enter the 2nd tier. It's really tough at the top. It could have been him, could have been Merritt moving into that 2nd tier. And Dacos is going to stay on top. Just keeps putting in the performance after performance after performance.
I don't mind it. The one player I'm going to throw at you, I know it's very tough to make those 15 spots. The one player I'm going to throw at you that jumps out at me is Pat Dangerfield. I think the way he's playing this year, he's just a force to be reckoned with. It's things where if it was a guy not called Pat Dangerfield, we'd be saying this is a freak of nature, the best player we might have ever seen, but because it's Pat Dangerfield, it's almost expected. So I reckon you should be thinking about him this week. Bit of feedback.
While we're on the topic, can he be All-Australian?
I think he absolutely should be in the forward line.
I think it might just come down to games played. If he does get managed.
Has he missed one yet?
No, he hasn't missed one yet.
Yeah.
But if he does get managed in the later parts of the year and does miss an excessive amount of games as they get him ready for finals, maybe he doesn't play. But I'd say he's definitely a lock for that position. The
one good thing for us is it looks like Geelong won't be comfortably making top 4, which means there's a lesser chance that Dangerfield gets rested. Great for us all, means we get to watch him every week, hopefully, and better chance of him getting another All-Australian blazer. But now we'll move on to the better segment, the power rankings. So the bottom 3 are going to stay as they were last week. You can see last week's power rankings just across from our live ones. So the one team to talk about here is North. As we've spoken about most weeks, we expected so much more from them. And when you look at their list, you continue to expect more from them. In this game against Essendon this week, they really should have won. Just blew chances, no composure in the 4th quarter, and it was really difficult to watch. Speaking of, Essendon are going to move down a spot. They get the win just against a struggling North Melbourne side, and they just were not playing good footy. It's another case of Zach Merritt needing help. And yeah, when we see a team like St Kilda, who jumps ahead of them this week, playing some great football or getting a dominant defensive performance in, they can jump ahead of Essendon there. Next up, we have a significant drop from Fremantle. Yeah, we sort of ranted about how badly Fremantle played this week, just no movement with the ball. And so just purely based on that, I'm going to put them all the way down here till we see a change of style.
Big chance on Thursday night to turn their form around against Collingwood with all the Collingwood players rested.
Yes, holding their spot. with an expected win against West Coast by about the margin you'd expect. That's Melbourne. They're going along very nicely now after losing their first 5 games. That's now 3 in a row, and good on them. You love to see a smile on Christian Petrarca's face. So, next up, maybe the most significant placing this week is GWS in 11. So, they've just been slipping and slipping. This is 3 straight losses, and they've averaged no more than 65 points in the last 3 games. And this is meant to be the orange tsunami with all the ball movement, the premium ball users in your Lockie Whitfields, your Finn Callahans, your Josh Kellys, and they're just not quite putting it all together at the moment. They've got talent everywhere, as we know, arguably the best 22 going around, but they're just not finding it at the moment. Every team has bad patches, but it's quite an extended one for GWS here.
And they have Geelong away coming up, so big chance to make it 4 in a row for losses.
Completely. Honestly, I don't have great analysis on what's going wrong for GWS, except it's a confusing little patch here. Next up in 10 is Carlton, who keep their spot despite the big loss to Adelaide, and it's because they've had a consistent run of good form, and Adelaide took them apart this week, but we're going to give them a break for one bad performance, and GWS and Freo, with quite bad runs that they're on, drop below Carlton, so they keep their spot. Jumping ahead of them, though, is Sydney, who jumped quite a few places this year, because we've just been waiting for them to put some good footy together, a few close losses, and now they finally get it done off the back of a big performance off the superstar Chad Warner, and a really solid defensive outing from the whole defensive unit. So the Swans we're going to put out there because I think that they can really charge towards the 8. So next up with a significant drop is Port Adelaide, and we've talked about how disastrous their performance was. It's really confusing. Port Adelaide this year, a 90-point loss and a 91-point loss to Collingwood. And then surrounding that is some pretty big wins against good teams. What do you make of that, Aiden?
It's tough. It's almost like they buckle when the game's almost not going their way, when they haven't got a lead at the start. They've really struggled in the fourth quarter, just in games that they've won as well. So we saw against the game against the Swans, they really struggled to hold on, and they almost didn't hold on after having that big lead. They had that massive lead against Hawthorn in that game. They were up 70-8, and Hawthorn did have a look in that game. So I just think maybe it's a mentality thing when suddenly things aren't working, the ball movement's not working, the game plan's not working, they're just not really sure and almost just take their hands off it. Yep.
It's not a good sight for Port Adelaide fans who are starting to get some real hope for this season. So because of the run of form that they've been on, I'll keep them in the top 8. Next up, with a big jump, is Adelaide. There were some big changes this week because I had a lot of teams close together last week where I did not know how to place them. It was the toughest week last week, and I think some big margins this week helped me separate some of the crowd. Adelaide was one of those teams who put on a classy performance against Carlton. Gold Coast in 6, didn't play their best footy, recovered the scoreline late against Brisbane, but you're going to expect them to get a couple of losses like this year against classy, experienced sides, and they still have a good record and sit inside the top 4 despite playing one less game than all the other teams. Next up, the Bulldogs, who sit in 5 because I think they're comfortably on their way to the 8, and I think that they're pushing towards the top 4 spot. They are playing amazing footy, maybe the best midfield in footy right now, especially with Bont back and Treloar back this week as well. If they can just balance all that talent that they have going around, and find who needs to be playing what role, they're going to be a complete force. And the top 4 is going to stay the same. Geelong get it done against Collingwood, but Brisbane and Hawthorn get it done again, not allowing Geelong to jump above them, and then I'm going to keep Collingwood at top spot. You just have to applaud both teams, Collingwood and Geelong, for the performance that they just put up, and neither team really feels like a loser on the power rankings.
I like it. First finals type game I feel like we've had this year, and wouldn't be surprised if that's a game we see in the finals come September. Let us know what you think of the power rankings, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you.